Today's interview is with Chris and Ashton Levarek. They're brothers, obviously, as you can tell by their surname. Awesome guys, really good guys, both military guys. I have the highest respect for those people. But they've grown their multifamily portfolio to quite the size at this point. They have over 240 doors and they're now focusing on syndication. So there's a lot of good information that they share today, just through their experiences. And that's how most of us learn the best ways, through people's experiences. So stick around for all of that. As always, like and subscribe on Wrestling with Real Estate, the YouTube channel. Go to the WWRE podcast and give me a 5-star rating and give me a great review. Hopefully it's worth it. I'm sure it is. And I'm looking to speak to as many of you as possible. If you're interested in real estate in whatever capacity that is, I'd love to get to know you, talk to you, see if there's any way whatsoever I can help you, or maybe we can partner up, right? Who knows? There's going to be a link in the description down below, or go to wrestlingwithrealestate.com and sign up there. But enjoy today's awesome interview with Chris and Ashton. Really enjoyed this one. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we have a special episode where we have two for the price of one, right? I guess you guys are a tag team of some sorts. We have Christopher Levarek and Ashton Levarek. So, hey guys, thank you so much for being here. I'm excited to kind of jump into today's conversation and kind of get to know both of you.
Hey, thanks, Barry. Good to be here.
Thanks, Barry. Yeah.
And I appreciate you guys being flexible with your schedule. We had to reschedule a few times, completely my fault on my end. So glad we were able to make it happen. So I don't know if you guys want to take a turn and kind of give people an idea about your background, what you've been up to, and what your kind of current focus is, so that people can understand what's going on with you guys.
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm finishing up 20 years in the military. I was a pararescue jumper for the Air Force, and now we're getting into multifamily syndications. We help people create passive income and keep more of what they make through investing in commercial real estate. So, I mean, that's the short and skinny of it. There's a longer story that goes with it, obviously, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'll jump in. I was in the military too. I was a firefighter in the Air Force. I got out, became an IT engineer, and then got into real estate. Like you said, we came up with this business and this venture in real estate because we saw that, we wanted tax deductions and we wanted to keep more of what we earned, and we wanted to be able to have more time with family. And that's, so it was something we wanted, and now we're aligning with people doing the same. So.
That's awesome. Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, you guys, for your service. Like, it's just like, I feel like for me, I respect people from the military so highly. And I don't know if, because people always say, right, thank you for your service, right? And hopefully it means something to you guys, but I know it's said all the time, but I just wanted to say genuinely from the bottom of my heart, like, I have nothing but the utmost respect for anyone who served in the military. Like, it's just, I always find that the guys are the highest caliber for the most part, right? Everyone that I speak to. So I have just nothing but the utmost respect for you guys. So genuinely from me to you guys, thank you so much for your service.
Appreciate it, Barry. Thanks.
You guys are awesome. So you guys, not a coincidence that you guys have the same last name, right?
No, brothers, yeah.
Yeah, obviously brothers. And so it's interesting that you both of you guys kind of were interested in real estate, right? You guys, had slight, even though you guys were in the military, even different career paths to some extent, right? You guys weren't, in the same field and stuff like that. So what do you think it was that drew both of you to real estate? Was it just coincidence? Was it family? What was it, do you think?
Chris, you want to go?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of it, you're getting older and you start looking at what are you going to do when you're hitting your 60s, your 60, 65, 67, and what's going to happen. Eventually we all know you're going to have to take a step back from active kind of work a little bit more. I was a firefighter, and that's kind of backbreaking after a while. Even then I was starting to think about it. But really in 2018, it started to hit home. I saw my 401k, the stocks did a little dive and there's a little dip, and that kind of like put a stop on my heart there. I was like, oh man, if I've been putting this hard-earned money away for so long and all of a sudden it can just vanish so quickly, maybe I need to look at some other methods of building wealth. And so when I do get to that age where I'm not able to trade time for money as easily, what then, so that's how I started looking at real estate, listen to all these podcasts just like this, driving to work, listen to podcasts. And that's really what started the bug. And then we talked, I talked to my brother, and he has his own story, and he had been influenced a little earlier, but he can speak to that if you want to go ahead.
Yeah.
So I was at 18 years in the military. I was in special operations, which is a lot of training, and you're away from home a lot. And I had just had my daughter, 4 years before that. So we're starting to make a family, me and my wife. I'm still on the road, 250 days a year or more. And you just kind of start looking at like, how can I maximize my income or increase my income and decrease the time away from home? And everybody just keeps telling you, yeah, you got to make it till retirement. You just make it till retirement, and then you recoup that retirement pay or that disability or whatever. And then you live on a small budget for the rest of your life, or you get another job. That's what that was the plan. And I was like, I don't think that's going to work. And so Chris, who had been thinking about this, so I had run into somebody a while back that had talked about this, and Chris brought it up in 2018. And it just kind of clicked. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Rental properties. People always need a place to live. That's totally makes sense. Let's do it. And then we jumped in both feet first, and we made a goal to get something under contract in 90 days, and we got our first small multifamily under contract. And we were, I would say we were off to the races, but really it was more like a snowball of just crashing into and learning, stuff. Because a lot of stuff comes up on that first one. You don't make a ton of money on that first one. You learn more than anything, and that's what happened. But we've really capitalized on all our mistakes and capitalized on all that learning, and just kept going. And so, since 2018, I don't know how many deals we've done. I don't know, close to 10 deals, but over 246 rentals. So it's been fun, and we're full steam ahead now, focused on marketing, branding, networking, finding new deals, all that stuff. So it's been a good ride.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me. Like you said, right? You just trudge it out till retirement, and then hope that you can get enough money to get by. And if not, you've got to find another job. And like Chris, you also said it as well. Like you with the stocks, right? I've heard a lot of people talk about this, that they were looking at their 401k, and it drops 20%, and that's 20% of the retirement, right? And you get to the point where if you get to 59 and a half or whatever it is, by 65, whenever you're going to retire, and there's a big dip, then you've got to go back into the workforce, right? You've got to consider, like, imagine that, right? At 65, when you're just thinking, okay, this is going to be my golden years or whatever, having to go back and trade your time for dollars. Because at that point, right, like what are our energy levels? What is our health, right? What is our physical state at that point, right? So not only is it like crazy to have to wait that long, but even then there's no guarantee. There's zero guarantee, right? You don't know what's going to happen then. So it's literally mind-blowing to me that this is the way, this is the path that everyone is supposed to follow. It's just ridiculous. I don't get how more people don't get it, unfortunately,
Yeah, I don't think people take the time to think outside the blinders that have been, put up for so long. It's just much easier just to clock in and clock out and go to work,
Yeah,
so.
That's what it is, I think, right? The people don't like to think, and they don't like to kind of get outside of those comfort zones. Yeah, it's true. So you guys are at 240 plus rental units. So what does that consist of? What does that look like? Is it all multifamily? Is it single family?
It's all multifamily. So we started in duplexes. We kind of did an organic approach of increasing the size of property we worked on. So we started in duplexes. We did, 4 or 5 of those. And then we went into a 5 unit, and then more into a 13 unit, and then a 16 unit, and then an 84 unit. And so it's multifamily in general. We haven't done any kind of self-storage yet. I do like self-storage, but right now we're really niched down on multifamily. So.
And these, so have you guys, do you own these all yourself? Partners, syndications? What does that look like?
Definitely partners. We're big on partnership. That's one of the things we learned doing it organically as well. I think when you start, you just assume you can do everything. But we partnered on every deal we did, whether even the duplexes. We found private lenders. We found, investors who were looking to partner up and let us do all the work. And that's kind of the basis for, the bigger deals anyway. So it's really good to start that way if you know that's the direction you want to go.
That's interesting that you guys were, because most people, me included, you start off with your own money and you kind of just, you don't think about using other people's money, right? Which is definitely the smart way to go, right? You can go further using, other people's capital because, there's only a finite amount of money that we all have, I think. Yeah. But if you guys start, how did you guys come across? What was the mindset with that? You guys just didn't have any money, or you knew from the off that you need to kind of leverage other people's money to kind of go further?
That's a good question. I think we just started talking about it together, and a friend of Chris, he had come into some money from, I can't remember where, maybe an inheritance or something, and it just made sense. We'd heard about it doing these kind of joint venture deals on podcasts, and it snowballed from there. I mean, the very first one was just joint venture with somebody else, but I think that's where it started. And really that's what catapulted us into everything else. Like Chris said, is just realizing that, hey, no one's smarter than all of us, and we can go a lot farther if we all work together. It is a team sport after all, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do, like you said, you can't do everything yourself, right? You definitely can go further as a team, right? Like I always say, like when you partner, it's like, it's not 1 + 1 = 2, right? It's 1 + 1 = 4 or 5, because you grow so much more, and people are filling in for your weaknesses if you find the right partners. If you can focus on your strength. There's so much more to it than just partnering and you going 50-50 and just growing that equal amount. You grow so much more, I feel like, from partnering.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're big on focusing on our strengths and then finding, our weaknesses and then filling that with someone who's good in that area. We have a couple of virtual assistants that work on the team, and it's the same thing. If you have a weakness, we try to get someone there who enjoys that work, who's passionate about it, and who's good at it. So it's the same with partnerships at a bigger scale too.
Yeah, that's a great point about partnerships as well, and finding like the stuff you don't enjoy doing, right? I know there's stuff that I hate doing, and sometimes you have to do it, but you're like, geez. And there's other stuff that I enjoy doing, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this right now, and you plow through it and you do it quickly, right? So if you find someone that not only is good at it, but they enjoy doing it, I think that's such a good point, because if they enjoy doing it, you hand that task to them, they're going to be excited to do it. They're going to do it quickly. They're going to do it well. Whereas me, like, underwriting is like, I can do it, don't get me wrong. And I don't necessarily enjoy it, but it takes time, and I got to like force myself to do it and get in the spreadsheets and stuff like that. I enjoy the numbers when they look good, because it means you've got a good deal. But in terms of doing, so now I have partners who like, he dives in and he's like, text me at 11 and 9. He's like, oh, I just found this. I'm like, okay, cool. I wouldn't. That's not like, what I mean. I'm glad you're excited about it, but I think that's an awesome point. Like, find someone that enjoys doing what you don't, because it's going to be awesome, and then you can focus on what you enjoy doing. So let's talk about that first deal that you guys did, like that duplex where everything started, right? What, like, how much did you buy it for? Why did you guys like from it? And then after that, we'll dive into the lessons, because I'm sure there were some lessons, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes. I'll dive a little in the numbers. Ashton can probably cover the lessons maybe. But it was old. I mean, these were 2 duplexes side by side. It was a quad. I mean, we jumped into a quad basically. So it was from, it was listed. We used the residential real estate agent to find it. We kind of, she wasn't super experienced in the multifamily section, but so we missed it there. But it was $209,000 for 2 duplexes. And before you go, wow, it's a good price, they're pretty run down. They're 1940s too, I think, 1940s. So they're really old, in Durham, North Carolina. So great market, Durham, Raleigh, Charlotte, some of the big areas for multifamily and good markets to be in. But yeah, 209, so 104,500 per duplex. When we got them, and we put about, I want to say 90,000 in. So, it went a little higher than we thought it would be, but I'll let Ashton speak to that. After they appraised out, it was, they appraised for 380. So we basically, no, 480, sorry, wow. 480, 240 each, 240,000 each. So We really raised the value. Of course, it helped different comparison properties. These were duplexes, so they rely on comps for appraisals. So the value of real estate in Durham is quite good. But yeah, so we were trying the Burr approach. So getting a high appraisal really worked. I think we were able to get a loan out for about $336,000, if I remember. So all in, we pulled all our equity out roughly.
What year was this?
2018.
Wow. So they had deals like that on the MLS in 2018.
Yeah. Well, they went away. We started using
quick.
Wholesalers.
I
I mean, this place was pretty rough.
Yeah.
It was empty. I think there was, they were empty. There was only one tenant in one of the duplexes. The back had like falling siding, the stairs were missing and stuff like that. It was pretty run down. But
what was the area itself though? So the property was run down, but how was the area itself? Because that's obviously an important factor, right?
Yeah.
It was 1 mile from downtown Durham. So within walking distance of a lot of like little shops and bars, cafes, that kind of stuff. It was all been renovated. There's a baseball field right down the road from it. I mean, so the neighborhood itself was rough, probably 5-10 years ago, but it was being gentrified. There were homes going for 600,000 plus right up the street. So, we saw the path of progress. They are flipping that neighborhood. There was new builds and there was flips going on all over the place. So there's definitely potential. And that's kind of what saved us, as far as lessons go. Yeah, we bought it for 209, but when I walked it, took the video, and Chris and I put our heads together, I think we came up initially with like $25,000 in rehab, which, like he said, it actually took about 90,000. So you can do the math and see the difference there. That was our first mistake. But that was our mistake, but it forced us to learn from that. So we got home equity lines of credit. We had business lines of credit that we were opening up. We also had our own savings. I mean, I think it was around 25,000 each that we put in. And we were able to get it done. I mean, but that was the first big mistake, right? Is thinking we knew what it took to rehab a place like that. And of course, the biggest rehab isn't always the stuff you can see, like you got to look at the wiring. These were like 1930s homes. So all the wiring had to be replaced. The plumbing had to be replaced. The flooring, there was a toilet in the living room. In one of them, there was, I mean, it was it was a rough, rehab. Like you walked into it and you hear all those podcasts of guys like, yeah, I walked in and I turned to my son and like, you smell that? It smells like money. Well, this place smelled like whatever that guy's talking about, So, yeah, I mean, you learn that stuff. Other things we learned about was like, we had a great real estate agent. She was really nice, but she wasn't focused on helping real estate investors. So she didn't know what she was looking for real estate investors. So it was a lot of back and forth with her on what works, oh, this one has a nice kitchen. And we're like, well, we're not looking for a nice kitchen. What else? We had, we did find a good property manager going through like BiggerPockets, and that's what helped us out with a lot. So he had a lot of experience in Durham. He had a lot of experience with, of course, tenants, and then how much what do we need to do to the rentals to get them up to market value for rents and stuff like that. So that really helped us out. Yeah, I don't know what did I miss?
Why did you guys choose that agent then? You said that she wasn't familiar with real estate investing. What made you guys choose that? Because you could have gone with any agent, I guess, right? What was the reason?
Well, me and my wife had discussed like we're going to look for real estate to invest in, and so naturally the first thing you do is just look up a good real estate agent that comes highly recommended. And of course, they're recommended by residential people. Oh, they got me the best with the best views and this and that, And so I'm not saying they can't work for investing. I'm just saying that what she values as a good property to buy versus what an investor values as a good property to buy are probably gonna be a little bit different, right? So because we want like the ugliest home in a nice neighborhood, right? Whereas she's looking for the nicest home for the best price, you know? So yeah, I mean, it worked out, but anybody starting out, I would recommend like get on BiggerPockets and look for a broker in that area, in the area that you want, you know, because they know real estate investors, and they're more familiar with making it work. And like she wasn't familiar with working with a wholesaler, and the guy who was selling it was a wholesaler. So he had listed it on the MLS.
Yeah. Yeah, he listed it.
Yeah.
He was an agent, but we ended up buying from a wholesaler. So.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty good. But that's it worked out right because it was a killer deal, right? And as you guys said, with you know, if you guys can find killer deals, it can kind of mitigate a lot of things, right? You guys went what 75 or 70K above what you guys 65, I think, right? 65K above what you guys thought the rehab budget was, but it still worked out right because you guys got a killer deal. So I think, you know, it's easier said than done finding a great deal. Maybe in 2018 it wasn't, but now it is, right? And if you can find a killer deal, it can kind of give you that wiggle room. So, you know, for people out there looking at marginal deals, you've got to really understand and be seasoned at that point, I think, to look at marginal deals. What was the biggest things you think that led to that miscalculation on the rehab budget? You just didn't know what you didn't know, or was there some stuff that came up?
It was experience. Yeah, I didn't know what we didn't know. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what do we have? It was like Jay Scott's book on what is it? Calculating rehab costs, I think, or something. Yeah, we had that. But you know, you don't know that stuff. You're like, yeah, okay, we need new paint. Okay, it's about this much square footage. It should be this much in paint. And I don't know. We just didn't know what we didn't know. But you know, for somebody starting out, what I would recommend, and this is what saved us, or at least warned us that this was coming. I got like 5 or 6 different contractors to come walk the property, or I made appointments with 6 different ones. Only 3 showed up. But the point is, they all came back saying, yeah, probably around 70, 80,000 to rehab it. And at first, like Chris and I were like, that can't be right. These guys are trying to hustle us, you know. They were absolutely right. So
you thought that all of them were trying to rip you off?
And we ended up going with the cheapest one, and then the cheapest one did costs start to climb anyway. You know, maybe it was a cheap bid, but then the cost climbed because the real guy, maybe the more experienced guy, or maybe even the more honest guy, kept the bid up front. You know, we did have some here's in the middle costs that came up, like a cast iron pipe that had to be replaced and sewage and that stuff. But yeah.
But here's another lesson too, is like when we found that property manager, he's the one that really helped us because, you know, he wanted our business. He saw that we were hungry. We were trying to build something there, we were trying to build a real estate investment business. And so he looked at it long-term, and he's the one who recommended that contractor. So we went with his contractor because after meeting with him, he said all the right things. He knew what we wanted, what we were looking for. He knew the markets. And then it just so happened, of course, you know, property managers, they know contractors, they know handyman, they know people to get that kind of stuff done. So it's kind of like, what is it? David Green always says, rock stars know rock stars. Yeah. So if you can find one great guy in that market that you're going to work with, start asking them for recommendations, because I think it'll lead you on the right path.
That's phenomenal advice. I always say that all you need is one person to start off with, right? If you're going, like we're talking about investing out of state, well, investing anywhere, even in your local market, right? If you start with one great team member, right? And we all need teams, right? You build your team up. But if you start with one person, that person's going to help you find, because rock stars know rock stars, good people know good people. And the exact same thing happened with me. I got a good property manager, and he recommended a contractor that he was using. So not only did he know firsthand from because he managed rehabs for other people, this property manager. So he knew this guy was good. Plus he had leverage on that guy, right? That guy was getting a ton of work from this property manager. So if he screwed me over, he was going to probably lose all that other work as well. So he had leverage. So that's something else that you know, what do these people have to lose if they screw you over, right? And if they have a reputation to uphold and they're doing work with other investors and they're known in that community, well, they have something to lose. So that's always something that, you know, I try and look at. Not that I'm trying to like blackmail anyone or anything like that, right? But you want to, you want to know that they're going to do what they're supposed to do, because it's so easy, unfortunately, for contractors to screw you over.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
It's getting out there in the right meetups and meeting people who are doing what you're trying to do and then using their network. I mean, why would you go build another network if you can, leverage someone else's experience?
that's so perfectly put, man. It's as simple as that, right? It really
Yeah.
is. That's what I love about real estate as well, man. It's like it has sophistication to it, right? Syndications and all that, right? It has sophisticated levels, but ultimately, all you got to do is follow what other people have done, right? Like you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You can be a millionaire pretty quickly just following what other people have done, and even like using their resources, using like you said, their vendors, their contractors, people that we work with. And the good thing is, when you might meet successful people, a lot of times in real estate, they're good people as well. They're willing to share, as long as, like you said, you guys show people that you were serious, right? They knew that you guys weren't messing around. You guys weren't tire kickers. So I think that's an interesting point. How do you said with the property manager, Ashton, that he knew you guys were trying to build a business. How do you guys do that? Because I think building that credibility with people as well is important early on. How did you guys do that?
Yeah, credibility is big. I'm in tech, so it's really easy to build a website. It's really easy to build your profiles on different social media and just be out there, be present so people can see that they look up your name. What are they going to find? Are they going to find you doing, shots on Facebook? Does that say you're serious? Does that say you're an investor? Because, people use Facebook and people use LinkedIn and people use Instagram to see what you're like at times. So I don't know if the property manager looked this up but that's one way, and then how you communicate, how you talk, how you follow up. Follow up is key. So if they get to you with a deal, follow up like as soon as you can. Everybody's got life, but that's how you show people that you are serious and you can be taken seriously.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
It's the easiest thing
to
reply to a text or reply to an email, isn't it? Like just do it in a time. Sorry, Ashton, I cut you off there. Go ahead, man.
No. I was just gonna, caveat on what Chris was saying is like that. I think so many people miss that point these days. It's like, I don't have a website. I don't have a business card. Nobody uses those business cards anymore anyway, and especially now with COVID, but, with social media, like that is your brand. You're talking about branding yourself. That is your brand. If you're doing shots or bashing the president or whatever you're doing, on Facebook, that's your brand. And now, somebody's going to like, do I want to sell to this guy? Do I want to work with this guy? Probably not, not as far as business goes. Maybe we can hang out, but that's it, So, develop your brand, focus on that. If that's all you can do. Chris did do our website, but there, you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, I'm pretty sure you can get somebody on like Fiverr or, one of those other websites, Upwork, to build your website for you. And that can just be the landing page. All your stuff from social media can just direct it to there. And then, now you have, as far as, the average user is concerned, you have a business, and that creates credibility. That creates people being, taking you seriously. And I think in the beginning, one of the big things we were trying to do was every time we got a deal sent to us was to respond within 48 hours, which I think is huge because, you imagine how many deals these guys see and send out and don't get any responses. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's huge. And it's also having a little bit, you don't need to be the most educated person in the world, but if you at least study what you're trying to invest a little bit in, right? If you guys were doing residential duplexes and, it was worked out to be a quad, but you kind of understood what you were talking about, right? You were just like, hey, I'm looking for an investment. Well, what are you looking for? I don't know, an investment, right? You've got to at least have some kind of knowledge and understanding what you're looking for. People can kind of see through that. So, and it pays off in the long term to have that. So the first deal, you guys mentioned that you brought partners on this. How did you structure that first deal? What was the split? And then how did you get financing? Was it one person signing a loan? Did you put it in an LLC? How did you guys do all that?
Yeah,
that's Chris's realm.
So I'll cover that. There's multiple ways to do this. I'll just go over the way we did it. But we, instead of like using a hard money lender, we wanted to do the BRRRR approach, which means we wanted to buy all cash. And so we found a private lender that funded 70% of the acquisition, just like a bank. Instead, we gave him a promissory note, basically stating IOU, and then a deed of trust on the property, basically saying you can take this deed in court if you need to, take ownership of this property if you need to, if we don't pay you back. You do the same with a bank when you do a mortgage, you have a deed of trust. And so we did that, and we did we even did a joint venture agreement. So we had 3 documents, and that was really to give that credibility, that comfort feeling to the lender. And the lender was relatively new to it too, so he wasn't asking for all that. But we were really big on using attorneys, having the right paperwork, making it look legit, and that's why it kind of worked out that way. We funded the rest. We funded 30% plus renovations. I had to go get another bank loan at one point. It was kind of a crazy process, but yeah, we made it work that way. So
that's pretty cool. Yeah. So that partner or that person funding it was just debt financing, right? They didn't have any equity in the deal.
Correct. But that led to a bigger and better relationship. So they ended up partnering on future deals as equity and different arrangements.
That's cool. Yeah, and it just goes to show what you can get done, right? Like, everyone just is always saying, well, for one, I have no money. That's one I hear all the time. I have no money. You don't need your own money a lot of times. You can figure out a way to find someone else's and structure the deal if you want to, right? If you want an excuse, it's right there for you. You have no money. But if you want to go out there and do it, well, I'm telling you right now, you can go out there and do it. There's funding sources that you can kind of go do. So I love that you guys set up like that and figured it out like that. Why were you guys, I forgot to ask, why were you guys investing in Durham? So
I was living.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was living an hour south of there in Southern Pines, North Carolina, at the time, and we knew that Durham and Raleigh was a big market, and they had several colleges there, a bunch of medical facilities, big international airport. So it was kind of in our backyard, or my backyard, but at the same time, it was a good market. So, yeah.
That's cool. And where are you guys stationed? Where this is what you're stationed, I believe, Ashton, Chris, you're out. But where are you guys living? So people know.
So I live in Oregon now. I just got out of active duty in May of this year, but I wasn't stationed in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So.
Okay.
And then I'm in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been out since 2010. So, but when I was in the military, they put me in South Dakota. That was kind of rough.
Oh, how was that? Cold as hell?
Well, I put all overseas on your dream sheet, they call it. And they put me in Ellsworth Air Force Base, which is the B-1 bomber base out of South Dakota, -30, -20 in the winter, 60-mile-an-hour winds, at certain times. It was cold. So I got to see the Midwest.
I came to visit one time and that was it.
You're right. Never again.
Wow. Yeah, we're right next to Mount Rushmore, so you get some tourism, the faces and the rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. What does that to do with South Dakota? Ski?
There is a ski resort. It's pretty cold as well. A lot of hunting. And then one of the biggest things, of course, is Mount Rushmore, but you got that Sturgis rally, the motorcycle rally. It's pretty big. Okay. So that was fun. I was actually riding motorcycles there in South Dakota. So we'd show up on our little cross rockets and ride in these big Harley rallies.
Makes sense where you live in Phoenix now, though, right? You probably
yeah. Phoenix is great weather. Being in
Vegas not too far. Yeah. So is everything you guys own still in Durham, or you guys moved to different markets?
So we have all our smaller multifamilies in Durham and Fayetteville, and then the larger stuff is in Columbus, Ohio, and then just outside of Dallas, northeast of Dallas. Yeah.
Okay. So what made you guys kind of change markets? More opportunities or different kind of? Were you guys looking at different kind of investment stuff?
So that's a cool story. So we knew the power of partnerships, but we weren't like looking for partners. We were just developing our brand, analyzing big deals, looking for other, we were looking at other markets, and we had just started like narrowing down our top 3, and we liked Durham. I think we liked Phoenix a lot, although it was very competitive at the time. It still is. But back in the spring of this year, in fact, we had just finished our first official syndication on a 16 unit in Fayetteville. And a buddy of mine had reached out, somebody that's also in real estate. He's a flipper. He reached out. He's like, hey, you guys are getting into syndication. You should talk to a friend of mine. And so we kind of developed this relationship with his friend. And this guy ended up, I don't know, 6 months later, he's like, hey, look, I love what you guys are doing. You guys are headed in the same direction I am. And I have all these deals, but I need help closing on them. And so that he offered us a partnership. And after a quick discussion, we like these guys. There were two guys. There's another pair of our team of guys that we enjoyed talking with them. We've had drinks with them over Zoom, obviously with the COVID thing, but talk real estate, talk strategy, family, values, stuff like that, and developed a relationship. So when they offered that, it just made sense. Like, yeah, let's do it. This is what we've been looking for. Let's do it. And so the first one was an 84 unit in Columbus, Ohio, and the next one was a 120 unit in outside Dallas, Texas. We did have a 220 unit, but we can talk about that too. But that one fell through because of some other issues. We had that under contract for almost 6 months or 8 months.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, so I mean, it was through a partnership, a natural partnership that happened by just being clear about where we're going, what we're doing, who we are, and yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
I think that's awesome. Like, you won't necessarily give advice, you were telling a story, but I think that is advice, right? Like, if you want to partner with people, I think you want to like the people that you're with, right? They don't necessarily need to be like the same as you, or like have the same views, or have like everything, but like, you need to be able to like you guys said, have a beer, or at least have a conversation, because you're going to be dealing with these people like all the time, right? It's like literally so you don't want to partner with someone, even if they are brilliant at what they're doing and they fill in your weakness and they enjoy doing what you don't like doing. If they're not like someone that you align with and that you enjoy talking to, like it's going to be pulling teeth every time you want to reach out, like, hey, if you don't, like, you know what I mean? You want to have someone, because we can work with whoever we want, right? So it might as well be someone you get along with and you enjoy at least having a conversation.
Absolutely.
With, right? Like,
I mean, the deals last, right? They're 5 years, 3 to 5 years. I mean, you really got to make sure you're.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
For 5 years, you got to be around someone for 5 years. 5 years, you got to deal with them on a weekly basis, or sometimes a lot more. Like, like, I think that's something everyone should take into consideration. Yeah, I know I can be a pain in the ass. I don't know if anyone wants to deal with me for 5 years. but that's such an important. So the first one you did was a 16 unit. You guys syndicated a 16 unit. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me about that one. That's interesting.
Yeah, that was in the beginning, that was a big step for us to figure out how to do a syndication on that. Many people kind of were like, oh, well, that's too small and the cost won't be, worth it. And it was just at $1 million in acquisition. So we felt it was worth the effort to get syndication behind it. You can do that kind of concept. Yeah, it was a proof of concept. You could do that kind of deal with a joint venture, 3-4 people coming together to fund the down payment and renovations, but we decided, okay, we need to prove this concept out. What better way to do it than on a property that we know we can execute on, like a 16 unit at the time. We know small multifamily, we know medium, small multifamily. We know we can do this. We know we can deliver. So we tried a syndication on a 16 unit and it worked out great. It's still performing really well. So
that's interesting. Well, but you guys were doing like smaller stuff yourself there, right? Quads, duplexes. Why not continue doing that? Why not? You guys have had some good success. You guys are on a good trajectory, I'm guessing. Why then decide that you wanted to go and do a syndication?
That's a good question. And I think a lot of people face that eventually, because when it's repeatable, but you do have to hustle, right? So we were hustling, looking at deals after deal after deal, and we closed on a bunch. We ended up getting a 5 unit and then a 13 unit, right? And earlier in 2018. And I think at one point during one of our team meetings, so I think we forgot to mention that our wives both quit their jobs and started working full-time for our business. Well, at one point, Chris's wife, who handles the finances and investor relations, she turned around and she said, why are we doing these small deals? It's as much work each time. It's the same amount of work, going from a duplex to a 13 unit. It was this, we still have to do the due diligence. Yes. Yeah. There are more units to walk, but there's the same paperwork. We still have to process the loan. We still have to raise the money, and then we started looking, well, what's the benefits? And of course, a part of you is like, yes, let's go bigger. Let's go bigger. Let's go bigger. But then you look at the benefits and you realize that like the tax benefits are better. The economies of scale are better. There's just so many more benefits with a larger property. There's less risk involved. I mean, when you take a vacancy on a 13 unit versus a 100 unit, there's a huge difference there, So that's kind of what drove us to start looking at bigger and bigger deals. But yeah, the 16 unit was that first proof of concept, and that it was like, yeah, we can do this. Although we did make mistakes there too, but it's all part of it. Like, there's no such thing as failure. There's just opportunities to learn. So, I mean, Chris can talk about part of it too. I mean, we went through a syndication attorney, and he recommended a type of offering that turned out to be not as beneficial to us. And I'll let Chris talk about it. He was handling that side of the business, but yeah, it was definitely a lesson learned there.
Yeah.
You mind expanding on that, Chris? That's really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, most traditionally known real estate syndications go through 506B, 506C. There's also another one that used to be more common. It's called a 504, and it's typically used for all investors are non-accredited. So like, say you had a bunch of friend and family, and everybody's gonna be friends and family. You don't want to go through the hassle of third-party verification or accreditate, seeing who's accredited or not. You can use a 504 and just not have to worry about really vetting them too much. It's just a little easier. It's going to be more costly on the back end though, because you have to file specific filings per state. So if, say, the investor is from Nevada, for example, the attorney has to go see if Nevada has any specific requirements for investing in real estate. And so that's where it gets a little costly in that end. So there's also a cap. So you can only raise $1 million in a year. So it's really smaller offerings, non-accredited. And we did that, but it did turn out to almost slow down the process, because we're filing all these filings with each state, and it was kind of complicated. So and that's
It's probably beneficial for people that have all their investors in one state that are doing a smaller deal. Sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of our investors were military, and military keep their residence once they move away. So they're all these guys that invested in our deal. They were from out of state. They were all from different states. So it became confusing. It became a chore. Yeah.
But for cost reasons and for time reasons as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. You don't hear of that one that often. Never at all, really. That's usually, like you said, 506B or 506C. So if you went back, you guys would have done a 506B, I'm guessing?
Yes. I even think it would have cost less. At the time, I thought the 504 would be less costly, but definitely 506B.
But that's what the attorney recommended, was the 504.
So he's gonna make more money, maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Maybe, I don't know.
And also, so there's an example there of, make sure you're using the best expert for the role that they're playing. I had a great firm that I was using to make our entities, LLCs. They knew how to, trust behind this and entities over here and full protection with the LLCs and all that stuff. But they didn't really have a good securities attorney section per se. So then when I we have a securities attorney, I go and use a securities attorney. He's a securities attorney, but he probably doesn't do as many as someone as like a Gene Trowbridge or Jillian Sidoti or someone who's doing real estate syndication a lot more. Go find the right role or the right person for the right role. You don't need to stay just with who you know. So
yeah, and find good people, right? Shop around and find people that are cheaper, but there's usually a reason why they're cheaper, right? So it's with stuff like this, you don't want to mess around, right? This is like serious business, right? If you want to get someone to paint your living room and you want to get it cheaper, okay, maybe go. But if it's talking with securities law here, right? You can get a lot of trouble if it's not done right. So I think it's worth paying for that. So you guys said it was what, $1 million purchase price? What was the purchase price and what was the raise on this one?
I think it was 960.
Yeah, they were asking 1.1, and I think we negotiated to 960.
That's pretty good. How were you guys able to negotiate that? It's like 140,000.
There was a bunch of deferred maintenance, including air conditioners that had to be repaired, a retaining wall that was falling over. I think one of the units had termite damage, stuff like that. So, yeah.
So you guys were able to get that off so that you guys knew you guys had to go and then repair it, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, and I believe the seller was kind of in a hurry, so we used that to our advantage. I believe he was going through.
He was doing a 1031 actually.
Yeah.
Believe, right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were able to kind of leverage that speed. We can close quickly, that kind of thing.
Okay. Well, so how were you able to close quickly? Because obviously multifamily doesn't move like, residential, right? It's usually 60 to 90 days for close. How were you guys able to move so quickly?
I think it was 45 days.
Okay.
It was
Yeah.
1 week extension at one point. Yeah.
That's impressive. How were you
So-
guys able to do that?
Relationships, even at
Yeah.
that point, we had already knew we were going into that area, and we had kind of built a list of interested parties in that kind of opportunity. So when we came to the table with it, it was quick. That relationship was already formed. We didn't have to go, hey, we might be doing this thing, are you interested? We had already been having those talks. And so that really helped us to close. I think it took us 2 weeks to raise, $500,000 roughly.
Oh, you need $500,000.
So I think that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a close. Yeah. But I think that's a good point too, and that's something that a lot of new guys, when I talk to them, that's what they're asking about. When should I start raising capital? Well, you should always be forming those relationships, because if you're going to do a 506B, you have to have an existing relationship already anyway. And what the SEC determines is an existing relationship. It's kind of up to you and your attorney to figure that out, because it's kind of loose. But you probably want at least 30 days knowing each other and enough education going towards those potential investors long before you get something under contract. So you should always be having those talks. And then if you're somebody that wants to get in and invest on deals like this, then you should also be reaching out to, operators that are doing deals, because it will take a time, because legally they can't take you on, when there's already something under contract and that's the first time you're talking. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to make a disclaimer here, just because of the way the world is, unfortunately. Like, this is for educational purposes. Nobody's giving any kind of legal advice.
Right.
None of us are lawyers, and none of us are, getting paid to do any of this. It's just for educational and fun purposes, because we're enjoying it. So for anyone out there, please don't go and sue us or anything stupid.
Always got to put it.
Yeah. You just don't know these days. But so that's cool. You guys were able to raise money that quick. But how were you guys doing that? How you got that? I think you said that most of it came from military people that but how are you guys even bringing that up? How are you setting that up, right? It's just not like, hey, I've known you for a few years, give me your money, right? How are you guys kind of setting that up? And like you said, you've always got to be talking to people about that and creating those relationships. So how did you guys do that? I think that's really interesting.
So we had, so basically what we did was I think we followed the book, Raising Capital, or Capital Raising for Real Estate. I can't remember, but you just make these lists of, all right, so family, then friends, then colleagues, and we looked down that list, like, who do you think would be interested in investing? Who do you think has capital that is sitting around? Maybe they have equity in their home. They're looking to use a self-directed IRA, a 401k, something like that they really want to put to good use. And we sent out emails, and we made phone calls. And the other thing we did was we set up a webinar, like, hey, look, if you're at all interested in investing in real estate or partnering with us on this real estate that we're getting involved in, come see our webinar, or at least sign up for it, and we'll send you a copy. And that's what happened. So we built this webinar. It was a slideshow showing the team, showing who we're working with, showing that market, of course, and then of course showing the deal and the underwriting. And the nice thing about that is, even people that didn't watch the show, like later on, that we knew that wanted to get involved, that we could just turn around and send them the webinar. But that's how we raised all the capital, actually.
That's cool. So how does that initial email go on, that initial phone call? What do you guys send out? How do you word that for people that might be thinking, oh yeah, that's a great idea, which it is. It's awesome, right? Because you already have these pre-existing relationships with all these people. So obviously you take that out of the equation, but it's not an easy subject to approach with people necessarily, right? So how do you got to kind of be somewhat strategic about the way you do it? How did you guys do it?
Yeah, I think
we just said, hey.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think it's creating a funnel. It's creating a funnel. And so, you want to be in front of a person as much as you can before you have a call to action, or we have a request of some kind. So the better you know the person, the quicker you can jump into that call to action, because they're familiar, they trust you, they like you, that kind of thing. But so we created a newsletter, and people who liked us got on the newsletter, and then they were seeing that information, previous to these calls, a month in advance, every month we do a newsletter, talk about what we're doing, different multifamily advice, things we've closed on. I write a blog once a week. I've been doing it for 2 years now. And so we had all this content, we had all this credibility kind of behind us, and we started trying to get in front of people. Now, if we didn't have them in that pipeline, we didn't have them in that newsletter, that call is a lot harder to make. So it's about prepping the machine. It's about getting the system going, and then you have that call to action. So
yeah, and then people know, they're like, oh yeah, Chris and Ashton, they invest in real estate. I want to do that. And then they reach out to you, or they don't. You reach out to them at some point, and that's how it starts. But yeah, like, again, it goes back to like your branding and credibility, right? Like, people know that this is what we do. Like, yeah, Ashton's in the military, Chris is in IT, but they also invest in real estate. Oh, that's right, they do. And
yeah, they put it on Facebook all the time.
Yeah.
In between taking shots.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's cool. But that's smart, right? Because obviously, like you said, it's about building that connection, and about without having to force it down them. If they're getting a newsletter every month, and like you said, if you're putting it on Facebook, people, they don't always remember, right? But then all they need is one post, be like, hey, Chris and Ashton, oh yeah, they're in real estate, I'm interested, let me reach out and see what they're doing, I thought about that. And then that conversation starts like that. All you need is something to start that conversation, right? Like you said, that newsletter, It's always, they're looking at it, they're seeing whatever information that you're providing with them, and you're building credibility as well, right? You're seeing as a thought leader in that space, right? As someone that knows what they're doing. And I think that's important as well. So that's cool.
Yep.
Building
Absolutely.
the funnel is such an important way to meet investors, I think. As we're running out of time, tell me about that 220 unit. I can't go without asking what happened with that 220 unit. You were in the contract for 6 months and it didn't end up working out.
Yeah. Well, it was just one thing after another. So, our partner got it under contract. We went out there, started due diligence, walked, all the units, took a bunch of video pictures, going over the leases, all that stuff. I mean, you get the whole ball rolling to do it, right? But then it was just one thing after another. So COVID slowed down the due diligence. We had to extend for a month because of that, of course, because they didn't want, so our partners are up in the Northeast, and, COVID's was a big deal up there. And so Columbus, Ohio, the owners didn't want somebody coming from that highly infectable area down to Columbus and walking through the property. So we put off due diligence for a month, and maybe even went 2 months at one point, but then it was a long thing. So I guess one of the investors, I don't know how much I can actually talk about this, but
okay,
it fell through. So one of the investors turned around and said, hey, one of the investors in the owner's property turned around and said, hey, it's not valued at what you're selling at, and I'm going to sue you if you sell it at that property or that value. So it started this long conversation. Yeah. So they're like, well, we need to retread the sale price. And so that just snowballed into more and more. And then next thing you know, I mean, if you're familiar with agency loan, like they have requirements to close on a property, 92% occupancy was the one we were working with. And I think the owner knew that at one point, and he turned around and sent up saying, oh, we only had 60% occupancy. And so that was 8 months later. And so it's just like, it was going back and forth. And then finally we're like, well, we can't do anything about that. So
nobody wants to go to court and deal with all that. And so,
Yeah, sometimes better to walk away, right? Not only just financially, but also from a mental standpoint as well, right? Just move on and kind of cut your losses. That sucks. I'm sorry, that guys. I'm sure as well, it probably cost you guys some money as well, right? Because you have to put
fly out there,
process costs, money, all that stuff. It's just not cheap. So I guess it's like you said earlier,
business.
Right? It's what's that?
That's business,
That's business, right?
Sometimes you take loss.
Yeah.
You got to keep going.
Yeah, and you just learn from it, right? You learn. And...
Do you really have to take a loss?
Yes, right. Yeah, if you could avoid it, right? That's cool. Awesome. You guys got an awesome story. I love this. Like you guys are just growing and growing and growing, right? It's just starting from a quad to kind of make get into a 220 unit in the contract, right? Is that what out of interest? Like, was that from a mental standpoint? Was that like kind of crazy for you guys, or had you grown enough at that point to be like, okay, we can take 220, or was it still this is 220 units right here. This is whatever the purchase price is a lot of money. Or were you guys at that point where you just felt comfortable with it?
I think, so I think yes and no. We had those conversations. Are we ready for this? Can we do this? Can we raise that much money right now? Can we close on this? And, but I think whenever you have questions about, should you do this? Should you take the step? What's the next step? That really comes down to clarity. And I know Chris is probably like shaking his head inside his head. He's like, I hear this all the time, but I really do believe it's all about clarity. Like if you don't know what you want out of life, then you won't know what the next step is, right? You're going to question everything that's coming to you. But if you look, and this is something Chris and I have sat down, we sit down every 90 days, like where are we going? What do we want? Are we headed in the right direction? Are these the steps we're taking to get us there? And we measure that progress. But that's really what it is. We look 3 years in advance. What did we want to have by the end of that 3 years? And then are we taking the right steps to get there? So when that 220 unit came up and it was a $10 million acquisition, and we had only just done a 16 unit, which was a $1 million acquisition. Well, we knew 220 units, that's half of what we wanted to hit by 3 years. And we're like, well, if we're partnering with somebody else, that's exactly where we want to go. Why would we turn that down? That's exactly what we want. So getting absolutely clear about what you want, no matter how big or small, like make that goal far enough in the future that it's achievable, but not too far off that you put it off. Like you don't want a 10-year goal because then you're like, I'll get to it next year. You know what I mean? Like you want something that's 3 to 5 years that really motivates you to start taking action today. And then you just need to commit. You commit, and every day is a commitment. You commit each day. Every day you write those goals down. Every day you commit to taking action, and you take a little bit of action every day. And maybe that's just reading a book. Maybe that's making an offer on $10 million property. Maybe that's making a partnership, whatever. Like action, take action every day. But it just, once you truly commit, everything, it doesn't matter. There is no such thing as failure when you're truly committed. There's only opportunity to learn. And I think that's where people fall short, is they're not clear about their goals. They don't truly commit to their goals, and then they don't take action. And it's really that simple, in my opinion.
No, man, that's awesome. I love that. It's funny that you said that, because it won't be, this won't be released today. So whenever people listen, it'll be probably a few weeks out. But yesterday, I have a friend that we do mindset stuff, because I'm fascinated by the mindset stuff. It's just so interesting because it's so important. It's more important than anything else to me, because like the technical side of understanding how to do a syndication, all that information is out there, right? But it doesn't matter unless you're willing to take that action and move forward and take the steps, right? Anyone can essentially do it, right? Like, you know what I mean? If you're willing to learn and move forward and take action, but it's unless you have that mindset part of it. So we did one yesterday on clarity, like we picked different topics, and so it's funny that when you started talking about clarity, I was smiling, because it's clarity is so important, because if you don't understand what you want, what you're trying to achieve, where you're going next, how are you supposed to get there, right? How are you supposed to like figure out what you're doing if you have no clarity about what you're trying to achieve and what you're doing? So, and like you said, then when you had that clarity, that 220 unit came, it made perfect sense for you guys to go after it, right? It took that, I know that, like you said, there was some fear in it, but it just made sense. So you knew you had to go after it. So you had that clarity. So that's awesome. It's a good timing. I love that. So, now, as we're wrapping up the show, there's always 4 questions I ask people at the end. So I'll ask you both of them. You guys can take turns in answering both of them. But they're wrestling-related real estate questions, even though the first one necessarily isn't. So we'll start with Ashton. What would your wrestling name be? If you picked a wrestling name for yourself, what would it be?
Smash and Ashton.
Okay, awesome. I love it. Chris, what about you? Beat that one. We got a better one? Smash and Ashton?
Maybe The Specialist.
The Specialist?
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally
awesome.
different.
I like that.
Cool. So every wrestler has a special move, right? It's their biggest strength. Once they hit that move in the match is over, right? The Undertaker hits the tombstone, nobody's getting up for that. It's his biggest strength. So what is your special move in real estate? What is your biggest strength? Chris, we'll start with you this time.
Systems, operations.
Awesome. Yeah, that's so important, right? Because without systems and operations, like everything gets messy. It's not repeatable. It's
can't fix it.
Yeah, can't fix it. Yeah, so true. Yeah. What about you, Ashton? What's your special move in real estate?
Special move. I don't know. I want to say like headbutt, because I play rugby and I used to headbutt. I don't think that's.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, what is it? Is it networking? Is it meeting people? Is it connecting people? Is it underwriting? What do you think your biggest strength in real estate is?
it's probably mindset and hyping people up, people motivating people. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Talking and networking, that all plays in part, but yeah, mindset and networking.
Awesome. I love that. So what's been the biggest body slam you've taken in your real estate investing career, Ashton? You guys, this might be the same story for both of you, but I don't know.
I'll pick a different
Yeah,
one.
the biggest setback.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Chris, do you have one?
That's part of the problem with good mindset, right? Nothing's a setback.
Nothing's a problem. Yeah. True, yeah. Chris, what about you? Do you got one?
I mean, there's been so many, but we've really gotten through them. I mean, the biggest surprise one was, well, we always use the high cost on the first duplexes. That was really crazy. But what we got AC units get robbed on our 5-unit right after closing. All 3 of them got stripped to parts, and because they were exterior units, and that really, I was like, that's gonna be expensive. So, because it's about like 7,000-8,000 for an AC unit. So
how much did that end up costing you? How many AC units and how much money did they?
Thankfully, you got insurance before you close, right? Yeah. But when that
was
our first
good insurance.
That was our first, really it was our first 5 units going up from a duplex, and we were just like, I hadn't done an insurance claim at that point. I don't know how much they're going to cover or not cover. So, luckily we got the majority of it back. So.
Yeah. So you said, Ashton, right? Always get insurance ahead of time, right? So how do you guys set that up?
Yeah.
For people who might be
before closing.
Yeah, before closing. Typically, people, when you get a mortgage, your lender's going to require insurance. But let's say even if you're buying it cash and everything, I mean, anything can happen. The day after close, it burns down. We have a insurance rep. Put them on a call. Get a policy in place. Don't risk it.
It's funny that you said that. I've got a friend, his name's Todd Pulse. He's got over like 100 single family homes. And that happened to him. He bought a property, he got a good deal, but I guess someone from the family didn't like that he was buying that property. Well, that's the theory. And the next day he didn't have insurance, burnt the place down.
Oh, wow.
To this day, he has that, and he had to knock the place down. He still has that piece of land. He's paying tax on it every year. And he wasn't able to, he just did never recover from that. So let's get insurance. Insurance. Yeah. It's easy to forget, but not painful if it goes wrong. So was there a moment that you guys were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it, and how did you overcome it? Chris, you go first.
I think it was
Ashton, go first. No, good. No,
I'll go first.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, we need a buzzer.
There's been a lot. I'm more the analyst kind of approach, so it helps to partner with someone like Ashton. But I'd say I was definitely intimidated by a 220 unit. Not gonna lie, like it was very intimidating for me to think about raising money and all the systems that I'm going to put into place to execute on something like that. But how I got over it is being partnered with the right people, having someone else thinking differently with different mindsets, saying, we know we can do this. Let's just take steps. Here we do this, and so if I can see someone kind of giving me the steps or giving me the big vision, then maybe I can plan out the process. That's kind of how I think. So then it becomes a little less scary, a little bit less intimidating. And that's how we went about it.
Awesome. What about you, Ashton?
I think, so, I think a big one for a lot of people is like, I'm taking a bunch of people's investment money, their hard-earned money, and I'm going to put it into an asset that I think is good, but is it good enough? And am I going to protect this capital well enough and help it grow like I promised to these people, right? So that's always a concern. And then, so the big one for me was that didn't actually bother me that much. It was keeping track of it all. And I am not a detail-oriented guy. So turning around and having, and I say this a lot, but if you don't have somebody like Chris that does systems and processes and can track those details and automate that kind of stuff, find one, pay for it, whatever. Like it's worth it. It's worth it because like we have so many contacts now. Like, I don't know who I've talked to unless it's in our contact list. And so now we track all that through systems and automation that Chris has put together. And it's made it so much easier. But initially, like like, oh, I don't know, how much did that guy promise to invest, and how much do we need, and like why are we doing this and this and this? And so like it was pretty overwhelming at first, because when you start to realize that you're actually playing with other people's money, like it's a big deal. But having the right systems in place, yeah, that totally makes it so much easier. It helps you sleep at night. You know, it's trackable, it's repeatable, it's measurable, and that's something that I am terrible at. So
just so happens you had a brother that was good at it. That's pretty lucky, right? Out of interest, and I think I know, but I'm going to ask anyway. What are you guys' like strengths, and what are you guys' role in that company? I think I can guess, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm the big visionary, like, you know, all gas, no brake. Like, I want to go. Yeah, like it's, yeah. And then Chris.
Yeah, so I do mostly the operations. I do all the website, the systems behind I write. I'm also a writer. I do the blog. I used to analyze a lot. Now we got someone else, you know, working in analysis area. But and I used to do the asset management part of it. So yeah, I do kind of like all the behind the scenes to make all the systems work, and the applications, the actual tech work, how we take money, our portals, all that stuff. So
I'm guessing, Chris, you're a little bit more analytical than Ashton, and Ashton's a little bit more of the, like you said, fire ready aim type guy.
Pretty much.
But you're both outgoing as well. You're not, Chris, you're definitely not the typical analytical. You guys definitely both have outgoing personalities, so that's good. Well, cool, guys. This is awesome. It's been a fun interview. You guys' story is really cool. I think it's awesome that you guys are brothers, right? Do you guys ever argue, or are you pretty good as brothers? Do you guys like get in?
Oh, yeah, we argue.
We argue. But I'll tell you what, if you are trying to do something like this and you're trying to find a partner, go read that book, Traction, and then do some type of personality test and figure out what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. You'd be surprised. It takes a little bit of humility, but because at first we thought we had to know everything. We thought we had to do everything, and we were always competing with each other. And, you know, it turns out I'm better at some things, and then he's better at some things. And then if you can relinquish that, it's easy to say out loud, but it's hard to actually do sometimes. But when you have those, like that book Traction, or you have like a personality test that shows you what you should probably be focusing on, it makes a little bit more sense. So.
Awesome. Before we go, where can people find out more about you guys? Do you have guys socials, website? Where can people find out more about you guys?
The easiest way, just go to our website, valkeregroup.com, VALKERE group.com if you're listening. Yeah, we have all our contact on there, all our social media. Alternatively, you can either look for our names in LinkedIn, BiggerPockets. We all have profiles there, but the website's the easiest. So
cool, and I'll link that in the show notes and the description below. So awesome, guys! Thank you so much. This was such a fun interview.
Awesome, thanks, Barry. Appreciate it.
Have a great day. Take it easy.
You too, man.